Hello, Serious Survivor here. I want to make sure everyone can hear me good out there tonight. Hello, Serious Survivor here. All right. Looks like the sound is coming through. I hope everybody's having a good night out there. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. A lot of interesting things this week, as always, every week these days. And first, I want to say tonight's giveaway, I got a couple of cool little items that I think that people are going to like. First one is a bag of seeds. The SOS survival seeds are they're supposed to last for an extremely long time here. And we're going to be giving these away tonight. And also something to help secure your camp's perimeter. Something a little bit defensive here to help secure your perimeter. And that's military issue tripwire. So this is, I think it's 150 yards total on this spool here. And you can see it's two different colors, yellow and olive drab like. And pretty handy stuff, especially for securing your perimeter. You can't really see it. It's really thin. It's really strong. You can't really see it in the dark. So it's something, you can tie your tin cans to or noise-making devices or other types of devices. But pretty good addition to any bug-out bag or bug-out kit. So somebody will be getting those tonight and be shipping those out this week. So I want to start off by playing a quick word from our sponsors right here and thank them for sponsoring the video. Just a quick word. Now, inflation isn't something we've heard of for a while, is it? But last month, the inflation rate in the U.S. had the highest rise in 29 years. You heard that right, 29 years, 1992. That's a big problem for all of us with food and gas and everything else going up. But it's terrible if you're planning on retiring anytime soon. You need to put an inflation dam up to stop it from wiping out the value of your savings and investments. It's not too late. Noble Gold specializes in retirement planning and IRAs. So their team of experts is your first stop, and they make it so easy to do. This month, they're offering a 1-ounce American Eagle solid silver proof coin with every IRA or 401k taken out. Not many people can relax when inflation is this high, but like thousands of others with Noble Gold, you'll be okay. Visit our website at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. All right. I want to thank them for sponsoring the video. Now, I want to talk a little bit about something we're going to talk about tonight, about some of the things the UN has been stating and what's going on with this investigation into the United States. We're going to look at some key details of that. The UN basically is more and more of a communist type of movement now, as we see, with one of their biggest funders being China, and with China having a lot of influence in the UN right now. As a matter of fact, 4 of the major offices, 1/4 of the major offices held by the UN are Chinese officials at this point. So they have a lot of influence, more influence than any other single country when it comes to the agencies they're in charge of that fall under UN jurisdiction. So that's a little concerning, but we're going to look at some things and tie some things in together with that. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about a project that I started working on. And, with all the talk about social media and all the talk about how they're, basically blocking people, we can't say what we want if we wanted to. I'm not a Facebook fanatic or fan or anything. But if I wanted to post something on there, I probably couldn't. In the past, I've had posts taken down by Facebook and even been, suspended for like a week. So, that kind of thing gets frustrating. It makes it hard for people to communicate with each other about ideas, and things that we talk about, like prep and things we may be concerned about, things that, may benefit us. It makes it hard to really do anything, especially in private. Now that we know the government's working with Facebook and they're basically monitoring everything you type in there, and they're going to be monitoring the direct messages, your instant messages, and possibly even your text messages. And this is really concerning. So I started work on a website today, completely free site. I've already got it built. Now, if you saw the post that I put up on the channel earlier and under the community tab, that I bought 3 domains, and I was going to let whoever, whichever one gets the most votes that you like, be the name of the site. And I'm going to show you a little bit about the site, but first, what the goal is. The goal is to give people a secure place to where they can talk. Now, of course, any website, we want to watch what we say as far as personal information and all that. This site is not going to ask you for any personal information other than your login information. And I'm using some pretty good security technology that I was looking into today that's going to be on this site. The site will be restricted to only people who are users of the site. Basically, only people who, register for the site will be allowed access. So I'm going to share my screen here and show a little bit of the type of stuff that I wanted to put in it, and to get people's ideas. So let me share this here. All right. Now, the site, it just began it. And like I said, it's going to be a social media site. And it's basically going to be the goal of this is for people to be able to communicate with like-minded individuals, basically in their local area. And it's going to have what's called groups within the sites, and sort of like pages or groups that you're a member of, like on other social media sites. But this is going to allow people that are in the same area to better communicate with each other. And this will allow people to, or assist them, hopefully, in forming some types of groups, things, give them resources that would really help them out. And then as this grows, the smaller groups in each localized area could then, possibly reach out to groups in the next area, next region over. And eventually we could create a nationwide network, basically, of people that, we could count on, and people that would stand together if the time ever come for it. And been working on this all day, and it's going to take a couple weeks to get it up. Some of the pages going to have a lot of security. It'll take a 2-factor authentication to sign in, which basically you log in, and then it's going to send you a text message, and you put the random code in, and then you can get into the site. Nobody other than registered users, people who register on the site, will be able to view anything on the site. Like right now on other social media, on a lot of them, you can log in as guest, and you can just go look at a lot of different stuff, under people's, different people's pages and all. No one will be able to get past the first page on this site, and that will prevent people from looking who aren't actually a member of the site. And going to have set up the groups to where people will also be able to create their own groups. They'll be able to create their own groups within the group. So you can create a localized group to your city, and it's going to have privacy levels that you can restrict, other people from accessing that group except for people you approve and things like that. So it's going to have a large level of control for you as a user, and it's not going to allow people into your area, into your page, your group, unless you authorize that. And the security is something that I was really concerned about. I wanted to make sure it's a very secure site. Although there's no exchange of money or any type of information like that on the site, it's not for money. This isn't a site for me. This is a site for us, for all of us, so that we can network with people who think the same way we do and who see what's coming. And the purpose of the site is for us to be able to make friends and to be able to create networks before something does happen, because we see that something's happening. I mean, everything that's going on right now in the world, it's not going to go away. And day by day, week by week, we see more and more and more coming, happening, more and more things getting worse. This is only going to grow. It's not going to stop. So the site is something I started on today and put a few hours in today, but I'm going to be working, at it over the next week or two. And I'm hoping to have it up and running within 2 weeks, because I think it would be a good way for people to contact other people. There's also a direct messaging or instant messaging app within there. And this is all going to be protected. It's all going to be basically, secure. I don't want anybody's information getting out. So, hopefully it'll be something everybody can enjoy, and hopefully it'll be something that helps people out. All right. So, hopefully everybody's doing good tonight. I really hope you are. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit. I've got to sort of lead into something here to really make a point about what I'm trying to make. But first, I need to add another source to my that I can play in a minute. I've got an excerpt that I want to play, and there's a reason for it. Here we go. All right. Okay. So talking about the UN, if you saw the live stream last week and the videos earlier this week where we talked about the UN, we talked a lot about the small arms trade treaty, talked a lot about the gun confiscation, about the UN's, basically their ability to violate whatever rules or laws they want to violate. I mean, the UN is only accountable to the UN. There's no governing body that controls the UN. So going to start by reading a little bit of this off here. First, I want to talk about someone named Michelle Bachelet. Bachelet. I pronounced that wrong. Bachelet. Michelle Bachelet. In 2000, she became health minister, and in 2002, she became Chile's first woman defense minister. She served as Chile's president from 2006 to 2010, and then was appointed head of the newly created UN Women. She served a second term as Chilean president in 2014 to 2018 before being named the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. So she is the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights at this point. And she, I will share a quick, in case you've never seen her, I'll share a quick photograph here. I think I will. And that is her, just in case anybody wanted to know. That is Michelle Bachelet. All right, now I'm not going to say anything negative about the woman. Don't even know the woman. But what I want to do is read off some of her statements. Now, her position, she is the High Commissioner for Human Rights for the UN. And this is a very, very important position. Some statements she made are really, they're really troubling when we look at a few seconds of this video that we're going to watch, and then we talk about some other things. She's talking about an upcoming report, and we're going to read from that report in a little bit too. This upcoming report will offer analysis of government responses to recent overwhelmingly peaceful demonstrations for racial justice. She's talking about the protests and then the riots that broke out all last year. And her take out of this is this report includes the unnecessary and disproportionate use of force by law enforcement officers against protesters, bystanders, and journalists. Okay, so this is from the UN High Commissioner, as they call her. And that, to the best of my knowledge, and I've researched a lot of this pretty well, to the best of my knowledge, I don't remember law enforcement. I know that there were some altercations with protesters, definitely. I don't think they attacked any bystanders, and I don't think that law enforcement attacked any journalists. But this is her direct statement saying that they did. So this sort of tells you the frame of mind that she's in. The next statement she makes is there is no fix to this police violence without first tackling the scourge of society. And she doesn't really define who she classifies as the scourge of society, but it's going to be quite obvious as we read off a little bit more. But first, a little bit about the UN, so we understand its structure, its organization, the members, and a few other things. The United Nations member states are the 193 sovereign states that are members of the UN, and they have equal representation in the UN General Assembly. The UN is the world's largest intergovernment organization. The two countries that are not UN members are Vatican City and Palestine. Both are considered non-member states of the United Nations, and this allows them to participate as permanent observers of the General Assembly, and they have access to all UN documents, including the classified ones. They just have no vote for those two countries or those two areas. The UN's chief administrative officer is the Secretary General of the UN, and this is currently Portuguese politician and diplomat Antonio Guterres, who began his first 5-year term on the 1st of January 2017 and was reelected on the 8th of June 2021. So he's another 5 starting 2022. He has another 5 years in office or in that position. The UN is financed by assessments on member companies and voluntary contributions from its member states. The UN's strongest and most well-known branch is the UN Security Council. We've all heard of the UN Security Council, and they're the ones that decide where peacekeepers go. They're the ones that decide where any type of the military arm of the UN goes, and that's not exactly true. I shouldn't say military arm of the UN, because the UN generally sanctions troops from other nations. They basically lease them and pay the governments, and then the governments pay those troops. So they don't actually have a standing army. They rely on member states providing that army for them. Now, the permanent and non-permanent members of the Security Council. The council is comprised of 15 members. The 5 permanent members are China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States. And then there are 10 non-permanent members, and they're elected for 2-year terms every other year by the General Assembly. So they're elected by the UN. And the current other 10 members are Estonia from 2021, India 2022, Ireland 2022, and that's being the year that they began their term, Mexico 2022, Niger 2021, Norway 2022, St. Vincent and the Grenadines 2021, Tunisia 2021, and Vietnam 2021. Now, there are more than 50 nations that have never served on the Security Council. Now, who will take the place? Who will be the upcoming members of the Security Council? Because January 1st, 2022, 5 of those members, remember the 10, not the big 5, the 10 only serve 2-year terms, and they alternate, every other year. 5 more are elected. So the 5 that will be taking their place in January of this year will be Ghana with a total of 185 votes. Gabon, if I'm pronouncing that right, Gabon. I'm not sure I've even heard of that country. 183 votes. The United Arab Emirates, 179 votes. Albania, 175 votes. And Brazil, 181 votes. The Democratic Republic of Congo had 3 votes. Peru had 1 vote, and Iran had 1 vote. Could you imagine Iran being in the Security Council right now with what they're trying to develop? Now, the 2023 Security Council elections, they will be held later. They haven't been held yet. But as it stands, the 5 that will replace the 5 that they're going to replace, there will be 2 countries from Africa, 1 from the Asia Pacific group, 1 from Latin America and the Caribbean, and 1 from the Eastern European group. Now, the reason that there are 5 permanent members and the other 10 are elected every other year, or every 2 years, I should say, is according to Oppenheim's international law, the United Nations permanent membership in the Security Council was granted to 5 states based on their importance after World War II. So the 5 states that are what's called the P5 now, those 5 states were, there after World War II, and these were considered the most important nations in the world at that time. How many votes does it take for the UN Security Council? How many votes does it take for the UN Security Council to perform action, or, to begin peacekeeping motions or peacekeeping actions or things like that? It takes 9 members of the Security Council to vote, and that's according to Article 27 of the United Nations Charter. Each member of the Security Council has a vote, and it takes 9 members or 9 votes to enact an action of some type. Now, the UN may not, even look at military force. They may not look at those options because the UN's not truly technically a military. Although they have access to a lot of militaries, they're not actually a military in their own. They have some equipment and they have some personnel, but they're generally staffed by the other member states. But they may actually, can impose sanctions. So the UN has no direct control over any member state, but there are a few options the UN has to encourage or influence a country to do what they want it to do. And these include economic sanctions. And that is ironic because the UN has the ability to levy sanctions against a country, but we're going to read something a little bit later to where they condemn the U.S. and the sanctions that we put in place against other countries. They're accusing us of human rights violations in countries like China. And I'm going to read that in a minute also. And that's a direct letter from the High Commissioner's office. All right. So I want to play a short video, and I think this will help where we're headed with this, because we see this, we know our nation is divided right now. And when we think about, the different types of division we have, it's not like there's one subject that's dividing everybody. We see it, we know it has to do with the pandemic is a divisive subject. Politics is a divisive subject. Race is a divisive subject. So all of this is being used against the general population. And I want to play this video very quickly. So let me share it.
As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary. Here is a book that I think ought to be in every home library. It's entitled...
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. I mean, the video is interesting, and I have a link to it. I'll put up after I get done with the live stream so that you can check it out in its entirety if you want. But it was talking about how the communists know that the best way to basically divide America, the best way for America to fall, is through the use of racism. And, it makes sense. When we think about a military fighting against a military, what are the distinguishing characteristics? This is generally the uniforms that the military wears. It's a visual difference. It's easy to see your enemy that's visually different. And I'm not really saying that right, I don't think. But what I mean is they're using a visual difference as opposed to theological or differences in beliefs. If you look at a person out on the street, unless they're wearing some type of identifying clothing, you're not going to know if they're a Republican or Democrat. If you look at someone on the street, you're not going to know if they're a Christian or an atheist, not just by looking at them. It's harder to divide people along lines they cannot see. If you look at me on the street, you see I'm white. There's no real way you could misidentify that. And that is an easier way to cause division than political, religious, or anything else right now, is because it's a visible thing. It's something that they can visibly separate us by. And, that makes, for the people that fall into line with it, that makes it easy to look at and tell who's your enemy, basically. And that's why racism is being used right now by the UN, by other countries in the world, and by our own government to divide us as citizens in our nation. And the average person probably doesn't walk around thinking about racism, but they talk about it all the time on the news, and they force it on us. They force it on everyone. And I'm going to read off a few of the statements, because one of the troubling things was this new investigation that the UN is going to be performing on the United States, an investigation that was invited by the Biden administration. And let's put that into perspective. The Biden administration has been saying systematic racism. We got to put a stop to this. Violent extremists, domestic terrorism. This is what he's been saying since he's been in office from day one. Now he invites the largest intercontinental, government in the world, and they're not really a government, but agency in the world, the UN, invites them in to investigate us on something that he's already saying does exist. I mean, the supposed leader of our country is already saying this exists. What's he going to say when? What's he going to say when the UN finds something, or, say, yes, we detect systematic racism and something's got to be done, what's going to be done then? And that's the real question. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I want to read a few of these statements first because I just will. All right. Bachelet, the High Commissioner, whatever she calls herself, of the UN, she stated that BLM movement is providing people with the necessary agency and empowerment that enables them to claim their human rights. Such efforts should receive funding, public recognition, and support. And the High Commissioner's recommendations included that the Human Rights Council establish a specific time-bound mechanism or strengthen existing mechanisms in context of law enforcement. So the full blame of everything that has happened in the United States from the UN is going on law enforcement and people who are simply racist, is what they're saying. And this type of division is what's splitting this country. This country could not have been beat united, but divided, it very well, we're in for a pretty tough fight at that point. The High Commissioner called upon all states to adopt whole of government and whole of society reforms and responses through adequately resourced national and regional action plans and concrete measures developed through the UN. So once again, this is a push for all states, basically, and anyone that they find in violation to adopt the UN policies, the UN, I hate to call them laws, but things that they want to be laws and their regulations. They're pushing for one total control of the whole world. They want the whole world to basically follow, their laws, their rules. And they're more and more communist every day. And if this is, this is basically the NWO that we're seeing play out in front of us. And what we have to think about, this report was given a 3-year time frame. 3 years. Now, I know 3 years sounds like a long time off, but a lot can happen in 3 years. We have to think about the UN Agenda 2030. The UN Agenda 2030. And by 2030, they want to have their basic global agenda enacted. And that's not when they're going to implement it. That's when they want everything to be done. They want to be in total control at that point. So they're not going to wait until December 2029 to come after the U.S. They've been coming after us for years, and right now they're succeeding. And this administration is helping them succeed. This administration is not stopping anything that's happening from the UN. They're not going to stop it. They're inviting it in. And we're going to see a lot more before this is all over with. So the UN to form panel to investigate systemic racism in policing investigations can be carried out by UN Office of Internal Oversight Services or investigated entities in the mission, including the Special Investigation Unit, military police, United Nations police, and ad hoc panels. Conduct and discipline teams do not conduct investigations. Okay. First, what is a conduct? What is a conduct and discipline team? The CDT, as they call them, CDTs, UN CDTs, conduct and discipline teams. These are like internal affairs for the police, right? They're supposed to investigate crimes against the UN, policies the UN's broke, anything that the UN peacekeepers do that could be considered illegal, unethical, immoral, whatever. They're supposed to investigate this. But over the course of the years, and I don't think until recently, I'd never heard of the CDTs. So if they had actually been doing any investigating and turning anything up, it seems like this would have been something we heard about before now. I don't know if anybody out there has heard of the CDTs. But if I read that again, the UN to form panel to investigate systemic racism in policing. Investigations can be carried out by the UN Office of Internal Oversight Services or investigated entities in the mission, including the Special Investigation Unit, military police, and it's referring to the military police of that state, United Nations police, and ad hoc panels are basically whoever it can hire to come in and do this. So a panel of experts, those experts, will have a 3-year mandate to investigate the root causes and effects of systemic racism in policing. And, this is what they're doing. They couldn't beat us militarily. They couldn't beat us as a country united. Think about, for those that watched 9/11, just no matter what else you think about 9/11, think about how you felt that day and how this nation acted that day when that happened, and how it acted for a while after that happened. We were united, or at least that's what I saw. People did stand together. And, I'm not saying something like that should happen again, but what I'm saying is that was a point in time we were united. Now, there's no way we can look at the country and say we're even close to being united. And the problem is half of the country's split. And the half that I'm not in is the half that is inviting the UN into this country. So the UN is not an invasion force. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying the UN is going to invade the United States. They're not going to invade us. They're not going to roll up on the shores and thousands of troops flood out. They're going to send 50 troops, and they're going to embed those troops into U.S. units. Then they're going to send more. And then as things progress in the nation and get worse, they're going to send more. And it's all going to be in the guise of assistance and help, because we're going to talk about a couple of situations in a minute that really could lead to that. All right. Now, I want to, all right. And can the UN punish the countries for doing this, for being in violation, of whatever they find, in this case, systemic racism? And it doesn't really come out and say what kind of punishments the UN could give, because technically speaking, the UN can't really punish a nation. They can sanction a nation, but then they can't really punish a nation. They can't, they can't enforce laws against us. They don't have that authority right now. But if the nation agrees with them, if our government agrees with them, then you can pretty much assume that a lot of these will, just join right in. All right. Now, the work is carried out in many ways by courts, tribunals, multilateral treaties, and by the Security Council, which can approve peacekeeping missions, impose sanctions, or authorize the use of force when there is a threat to international peace and security, if it deems necessary. So, depending on what I've read, so much on the UN in the past 2 weeks, more than I ever thought I would, and a lot. It's so confusing. I'll just say it's confusing, because I'll read documents from one branch of the UN and read documents from another, and it's like they tend to contradict each other, but leave it open-ended at the same time, so that basically you could interpret it any one of 1,000 ways. And if I can interpret it any one of 1,000 ways, then the leaders of the UN are interpreting it in one of 10,000 ways, probably. A lot of this documentation is left open-ended so that it can be interpreted the way it needs to under the situation, whatever the situation dictates. Now, I do want to read on March 4th in Geneva of 2021 that the High Commissioner, once again, and the UN made a statement about the United States. Emergency declarations by the U.S. government that authorize unilateral sanctions are resulting in severe human rights violations and must be brought into line with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR. The UN has more acronyms and more agencies than probably all the other agencies in the world. I've read so many. It's unbelievable how many they have. All right, so they made that statement. Then they went on to say the ICCPR, or the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, obliges states to protect a wide range of human rights, while it allows governments to suspend the protection of certain rights during emergencies. This can only occur when the very existence of states is endangered. The states may suspend the protection of rights only when necessary to deal with the emergency, and only for as long as the emergency exist. U.S. emergencies often violate these rules. Domestic laws allow the United States president to declare emergencies and impose sanctions on the basis of national security threats. but also when the U.S. foreign policy or economy face threats, rather than only the basis of threats to the very existence of the United States. And we think back to a paragraph I read earlier. The UN, one of the tools they use is sanctions against various countries in the world, countries that don't comply with the UN, basically. But right here in this document, they're saying that sanctions are illegal unless the very existence of that country is threatened. And if the UN's going to be able to apply sanctions, but then they're going to turn around and say it's illegal for the US to apply sanctions, then, that right there, just hate to use a simple word like double standard, but it shows us how contradictory they are and how they bend their own rules, their own regulations to suit their will, to suit their need at any moment, so that they can basically take this country and take this world over. All right. Emergencies declared by the United States often last years, and in some cases decades, and so do the sanctions they authorize. Instead of being true emergencies, they seem like excuses to impose sanctions. This is a direct official letter from the UN that is posted all on their website. And I'll also, like I said, when I get done with the live stream, I'll be putting some links in the description so that you can read all this. It's a lot, though. Get ready. Get your glasses. It's a lot. Two laws in particular, the National Emergencies Act and the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, two laws here in the United States, have become essentially an unlimited grant of authority for the president to exercise broad and highly discretionary powers through emergency declarations and sanctions that violate human rights, the experts said. The sanctions authorized by U.S. on the base of announced states of emergency violate a wide range of human rights in, so these are the countries that the UN is officially declaring we are violating human rights in. The first one is China, Cuba, Haiti, Iran, Nicaragua, the Russian Federation, Syria, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and then it says other countries and other countries around the world, including rights, this is what we're violating, including rights to freedom of movement, of association, and to due process such as fair trial and the presumption of innocence, as well as economic and social rights and the very right to life in general. I mean, they make it sound there like we have other countries just absolutely locked down. We're not letting them move. We're not letting them go out of their house. And to be accused of human rights violations in China, Cuba and Russia, yes, we have sanctions on those countries, but those same countries, place sanctions on us. And China has a lot of sanctions in place on the United States right now. And yes, we do have sanctions on them, but that's how the economy, that's how the economy protects itself from time to time in certain economic situations. Sanctions, we've seen used also in dictator type regimes and places like Iran, where they're obviously breaking every agreement they ever made with a nuclear deal, considering they're enriching their uranium to 80% and higher, and they're bragging about it. It's not like somebody went over there and said, I think they're doing it. They're coming out and saying, yes, we got 80% enriched uranium. So they basically have weapons grade uranium at this point, and they've probably had it for a very long time. And this is going to be very, very concerning in the very near future, especially when we see what's going on with Afghanistan over there and the U.S. pull out, and how we're leaving a void right next door to them. And the void could very well be filled by them, as they've stated they're going to do. All right. So that was pretty much it with that. I wanted to read off those sanctions there and talk about that, and talk about how, and it's so hard to put in perspective because there's so much information when you go digging for information on the UN. There's so much. And one of the things about the UN is, as I'm searching for information, I'm reading this documentation, is it's almost like one of those never ending phone calls where you get automated services like press this button, press this button, press this button. And it's the same thing here. It's like, well, this agency is in charge of that. And you go to that agency, and then they're in charge of two more agencies that are splitting that responsibility. And then you go there and it's being delegated somewhere else. It's hard to get an exact fix on where a lot of the statements are coming from. I mean, they officially put them out, but it's hard to get definitions on a lot of the words. Now, the UN has been accused of a lot of atrocities in their own in the past, and a lot of this has been brought to light. And we talk about the UN peacekeepers, right? A lot of the UN, what we would just call troops. I'll just use that word loosely, UN troops. A lot of the UN troops are actually not, they're not from the UN, because that is not a country. They're from different countries around the world. And let's put this into perspective. War is money, right? Not many people are going to sign up for the UN if they don't get paid, and not many people are going to sign up for the UN, if it doesn't pay well. And I'm just trying to make a comparison here. A lot of the third world countries supply a lot of the military for the UN. And the reason is because they make more money by doing that than they do by just paying their soldiers to remain there. Now, I've had a couple conversations in the last couple days about the UN, and some very interesting thoughts, and some things that were just, really brought to light. And I want to get better detail. And one of those conversations was today. And I appreciate, if you're watching, I appreciate that. And I want to get more into that, but I got to digest it a little bit, and I'm going to be talking about that, later on this week. But the UN is not on our side. And I'm just going to lay out a little scenario here from what we see going on in the world around us. The chances of, an asteroid strike or a CME wiping out the Earth is not going to happen. The biggest threat we face right now is our country being taken over basically internally, and then being governed externally by a one world government. At least that's one of my biggest fears. We can deal with a lot of other things, but this is one of the things that's going to be very hard. It's very difficult because it's not going to be an invasion. It's not like millions of troops are going to roll in on the East Coast or the West Coast. It's going to be step by step, baby steps. And we see these steps they've already been taking steps, and now they're taking bigger ones. But we're seeing that now with this UN investigation. I think this is a turning point. And the reason I think it's a turning point is because this current administration has been making such a big deal about the WHO and the UN and how people should cooperate with them. And they're doing such a great job. And, we're going to follow their guidelines. Well, when the UN gives us a set of guidelines, because they find this country systematically racist or whatever they want to call it at that point, what is our government going to do? Is our government going to kick them out and say, no, we're not going to do that? Y'all just go back wherever you're from. No, that's not going to happen. It's going to get worse from there, because our government is going to then forcibly, I guess you could use the words, crack down on us, basically. And we're already under attack with free speech. We've already seen violence in our own streets. How many people thought you would see the cities burn like they burned last year? How many people would have thought that 5 years ago, to the extent that it occurred? And the division we see right now. The communists, one of their best tactics, just like with the Nazis back in World War II and the communists in these days, is propaganda. It's not, and propaganda isn't always, a lot of people think, well, propaganda, that's Russia telling me Russia's a great country. No, propaganda is Russia telling you the United States is divided. Propaganda is China telling you the United States is divided, or the UN telling you the United States is divided. You get enough people in the world telling this country that we are divided, and guess what? We are divided. Whether we wanted to be or not, or actually even believe in it, then it's going to happen just by the sheer vast numbers that people are being exposed to it for. And this is something that, we see. And I think a very likely scenario, and gentleman I was speaking with today, we were talking about this, and the very likely scenario is, if we think about what we've been exposed to the past 2 years, okay, what we've been exposed to. half of the country, or I'm going to say half, a large portion of the country is now conditioned to do exactly what the government says. Think about how many people unconditionally accepted everything they were told in the last 2 years with not one question. Matter of fact, they would fight you if you tried to question it, or, thought they would. But I mean, they, look at that in itself. We've seen in the past 2 years, we've seen more in this nation than we've seen in a long time. So with all this unrest that we got going on right now, with everything, the political division, now you've got our own government, you've got the UN, not our UN, but the UN coming in already telling us that systematic racism and domestic terrorism is the biggest threats the U.S. face. And right now, the biggest threat that we face is our own government. It's our own government colluding with these other governments. This isn't an accident. Now, think about how easy it would be for the UN to come down if there were a grid down scenario. With all the cyber attacks we've seen, if they continue dividing us as a country over the next few months, and they continue dividing us, and the divisions become even worse, and these cyber attacks keep on, and they finally do hit with a grid down, well, who's coming to help when the grid goes down? In the big cities, it's going to be the UN. Now, in the rural areas, the country towns, now the UN's probably not going to show up there. There's not going to be enough of them. They're not going to do that because they don't want to present themselves. And I owe this to the gentleman I talked to today. They don't want to present themselves as an occupying force. They want to present themselves, and this is from his firsthand knowledge. They want to present themselves as your friend, your savior. Guess what? The grid is down in New York City. You got no power. Your subways are now filling up the water because New York City has to pump 13 million gallons of water a day out of their subway systems to keep them from flooding. So with no power, that can't happen. And just after a few days, the streets are going to begin to flood in some areas. So they're going to want help. They're going to gladly accept the UN's help when the UN comes in and they have Wi-Fi. We got free Wi-Fi for you. And guess what? We got electricity too. We got all these generators. We're going to start supplying people with electricity. We're going to get the communication grid back up. And we've got food for you. We got food for you too because the grid's down. And they're going to come in like heroes. So then you've got those cities that are looking at them that way. And it's only going to get worse from there. Because these heroes, if you want to call them that, these people that come in and try and be, the one that helps us out, be the ones that help this nation out, then eventually this is going to turn more and more into, okay, we're giving you Wi-Fi, we're giving you electricity, we're giving you food. What you going to do for me now? Well, guess what? You don't have a choice what you do for me now, because our government is in with the UN. Our government is bringing them in here by their own words. There is no way to misunderstand that. No possible way we could misunderstand that situation. And this is coming. And this is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But, in the end, we do win. And that's all we got to remember. All right. Well, we've been going for close to an hour now. And just wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I've got some more research I've been doing on it. And believe me, my mind's like spinning from as much as I've been reading on the UN lately. But I do got a lot more to talk about on that. Just don't have any more ready here tonight. Let me look at the comments, see if anybody's got any. Does anybody have any specific questions about anything that maybe, we could talk about? All right. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Instead of Russia, it's the UN. Now, Russia is going to sit back and watch. China is going to be the main, like we'd mentioned earlier, 1/4 of the major UN offices are held by Chinese officials right now as we speak. So China is going to be one that has an investment in coming into the U.S. and helping us. Once again, they'll probably come in right behind the UN as a humanitarian effort, after the grid goes down or after some type of event like that. Our supply chain's already broken. We see that. I know that the company I work for, our products are months down the line now. I mean, literally 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And I know they shut down the railroads right up here to where we receive our goods. I mean, actually shut them down. The supply chain is broken. We've just been lucky so far that we haven't felt it as much in our food. And then think about our gasoline. Look at how the gasoline, shortage or whatever, if you want to call it that, for those few days. And now we still see that increase in prices at the pump. Now, I know a lot of that has to do with our own pipelines being shut down, but that's another factor. That's another controlling factor that the UN will have. And that'll be our gasoline supply. Because if you think about it, we don't make as much gas as we did a year ago. And a lot of our gas comes in from overseas. So the gas that we do make internally would probably be reserved for UN and government and town officials and things like that, people who cooperate. And the rest of it will be held in reserves and basically held as a bargaining tool. Hey, turn your guns in. We give you some gas this week. We get some food next week. Which one of your friends was saying anti-communist things? We'll give you some gas. And that's what we're going to see. If we don't figure out a solution, and that's what I'm trying to do with the website that I was talking about. Is like I said, that website is not about money. There's going to be nothing to do with money on there. This is about us as a community learning how to network with one another, creating networks of people that we can trust and people that we can count on in different areas of the country. And that way we do have a united front. Because as of right now, if we don't have a network, there could be people in the next county over that would very well, help and support you, or vice versa, but you never know each other. And that's the whole purpose of it. There's nothing to do with money. It's all about, creating a network and helping as many people as we can. All right. Yeah, that's true. As long as we have our guns, it's going to be very difficult for them to finish the plan. Now, I've talked about, gun confiscation and all before. I believe that when it comes time that they're actually going to try to enforce that, it's not going to be door to door all at once. It's never going to be that, because they can't do that. They don't have enough people to do that. It's going to start off with things like, buyback programs. And a lot of people, surprisingly enough, will go up there and sell their guns, especially if somebody's hard up on money or something. I guess they would. But, it's going to start with that. And then it's going to start with increasing the regulations. Like right now, you can't own a firearm if you got a felony. And they're going to probably increase that to where, if you've ever had a DUI, or if you've ever had an open container, or if you've ever had, any type of arrest, you can't have a gun now. So, I mean, there's no telling where it's going to go, but as long as we've got those, then we do have leverage, is the best way to put it. We do have leverage, but we don't have leverage if we're all sitting out there by ourselves. If we're all alone in our houses, then yes, they can come one at a time. Get one household tonight. Nobody does anything. Get another household tomorrow night. That'll be the way it happens if we don't stand together. So we got to work together. All right. Well, what do y'all say we go ahead and do us a couple giveaways tonight? Remember, the two giveaways are a bag of survival seeds. Got 13,400 seeds, 33 different varieties, non-GMO, so they're not genetically modified. And a set of government issue Tripwire, good defense perimeter, even home defense, anywhere. You can put this stuff up anywhere. It's thin. You can't really see it. It's not reflective. So even with a flashlight or something, it's not going to reflect light. So it's really good to use. Really, really helpful item there. All right. So y'all know how we do the giveaways. And I'm going to write down a number between 1 and 100. And then as soon as I type in go, then start guessing. Right. And let's go. Oh, somebody was really close. Really close. Oh, I'm surprised ain't nobody's got it. Y'all all around it. There we go. There we go. Save yourself. Save yourself. Sheeple, save yourself. The number was 19. Now, that was moving up pretty fast. So I'm going to verify real quick that you were the first one. I'm pretty sure you're the first one I saw. So I'm just going to ask anybody else put in a 19 that I missed? All right. All right. All right. Save yourself. You know to email me at survivor at Siri. Let me spell it right. Survivor.com. All right. Okay. So I don't think I specified which one that one was for. So take your pick. Take your pick. Let me know which one you want. Because I might have. I don't think I said which one it was. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Some of you said you did. Siege. Got you. All right. So the next one is for the Tripwire. And it's some pretty strong stuff, too. It's pretty good stuff. It's for the Tripwire. And I'm going to do a second number here. And go. Some close ones. Nothing yet. All right, I think I saw it. Hold on. Let me scroll up. No, I didn't see it. It wasn't there yet. All right, still out there. Still out there. We've guessed every number except for the one. No. There we go. There we go. 95. 95. 95. And see who that was. I caught the number. Rubber Trucking. 95. 95. 95. Congratulations. Now, you know where to email me at, brother. So, two winners tonight. You got the Tripwire, and the seeds are going to go out. All right, and all right. So, congratulations to the winners, and I'll be shipping those out early this week, sometime early this week. Did you have 95 earlier, Kristen? All right. Let's see. Because if you did, I'll send one of those out to you too, because I don't want to miss anybody. And sometimes, it's really easy because they start scrolling up so fast. Sometimes I'm trying to keep up. And these old eyes. All right, Kristen, email me, Kristen. I apologize for that. Email me at survivor@SeriousSurvivor.com and to get your prize. I apologize. Hopefully I don't do that very often. Y'all let me know if I do, if I miss somebody's number, and then I come back and say, here's the number. And you're like, well, because I didn't mean to do that. Hey, you're welcome. All right. So congratulations to the winners tonight. Make sure y'all throw a like on the video, help us out. And I want to thank everybody for watching. We got a lot more coming out on this. I'm getting deeper and deeper into it and finding some disturbing stuff and talking to a few people. And, the more you find out, it's like the worse it gets. It's like reading a horror story that never ends. And so I'm going to be, everything I learn, y'all are going to learn. So keep an eye on the channel. Oh, sorry. Thanks a lot for watching, y'all. God bless. And for now, Serious Survivor out.